In the following clip I will talk to you about top 13 most beautiful places in the world. Stay with me in this clip and you will understand exactly what it is about. Pleasant viewing. If you are one of those capable of shedding tears at the sight of a perfect landscape, if you would travel hundreds of kilometers for a fairy-tale sunset, or if your curiosity for everything nature eats you to the bone, then you will devour the ones we have told below. We scoured the earth far and wide, and found the 13 most beautiful places to quench the thirst of any curious traveler. If you feel the need for adventure getting you out of bed and out the door, there's no reason to resist. So, if you find it hard to believe that all the splendors of this pale azure point called Earth really exist, why not see for yourself? Papua New Guinea, Goroka, a colorful tribal show. Considering that we are talking about one of the countries least subject to the gaze of tourists, it is not surprising that some of the most exotic creatures on the planet have their abode here. Bird lovers will find this place a paradise filled with countless species of birds and other creatures hard to find on the gray streets of civilization. In this corner of the world, most of humanity lives in rural communities that have remained the same for hundreds and hundreds of years. And Port Moresby is the perfect place to start exploring the soul groups here. Check out Trans New Guinea Tours, a local tour specially designed to get to know all kinds of regions in Papua New Guinea, even those in the less accessible areas. Olavango Delta, Botswana. If you can forget something like this, there is nothing in the world that will touch your heartstrings. Technically speaking, the Olavango Delta is part of the Kalahari Desert, which spreads its sands over an area of 930,000 square kilometers, and includes a large chunk of Botswana, some corners of Namibia and a few patches of South Africa. But the delta is a whole and entirely different experience. Visit in its peak months, July and August to be exact, and you'll witness the year-to-year migration of elephants, lions, buffalo, giraffes and a few other rubdans as they make their way through the desert to reach the delta thick with H2O. After the sunset catches you watching these magnificent creatures of the Lord, pitch your tent under the watch of the Milky Way, and let yourself be robbed of sleep in the lion's paws. More spectacle than it can be. Skeleton Coast, Namibia. Trekking on horseback over dunes that seem to stretch to the ends of the earth. Reminiscences of the whaling industry have left the coast with enormous quantities of whale and seal bones, and a name to match. Nowadays, the place is more known for the sinister skeletons of shipwrecks, living proof of the existence of an unfortunate few who once discovered how deceptive the rocks of the sea could be. Thankfully, the beautiful Skeleton Coast National Park, and its 16,845 square kilometers, is more accessible to the traveling public, although if you insist on reaching the northern area, you'll need to book a fly-in safari. Either way, you will find here a spectacularly wild and unique piece of the world interwoven with dunes that provide shelter to baboons, giraffes, lions, black rhinos and antelopes. Canadian Rockies, Canada. Few mountains can boast of having seen as much as the Rocky Giants that stretch their foothills from Canada right up to the US-Mexico border. And where is that much space for no less than 4 national parks, Yoho, Banff, Jasper and Kootenay, so beautiful that they were rather taken under the protective wing of UNESCO. And when we say beauty, we don't say that about the flowers of the apple tree. We're talking about rare habitats and endangered species, like none other than the grizzly bear. All the parks open their gates for you to explore as you see fit, either by car or on foot with a tent in the back. All you have to do is respect nature and keep your eyes peeled for a grizzly. Canadian Rockies, Canada. Few mountains can boast of having seen as much as the Rocky Giants that stretch their foothills from Canada right up to the US-Mexico border. And where is that much space for no less than 4 national parks, Yoho, Banff, Jasper and Kootenay, so beautiful that they were rather taken under the protective wing of UNESCO. And when we say beauty, we don't say that about the flowers of the apple tree. We're talking about rare habitats and endangered species, like none other than the grizzly bear. All the parks open their gates for you to explore as you see fit, either by car or on foot with a tent in the back. All you have to do is respect nature and keep your eyes peeled for a grizzly. Biowie, a forest, Poland. With one foot in Poland and the other in Belarus, the Biowie, a forest, one of the few remnants of rainforest still left on the planet, could not escape the protective eye of UNESCO. It covers 3,086 square kilometers and is home to around 800 European bison. Riding the back of a car through the forest is a wonderful experience. But for a slightly more intimate adventure, make your way to Reservoir Pakazoe Ubrau, the park's bison reserve. And if you're feeling young and cheerful, you might as well start it on a hike along the Wilczysłak, or Woko Yurchiska Guscec, if you remember such a name. Grand Canyon, Arizona. USA. We believe that the Grand Canyon needs no introduction, bearing in its depths rocks in ages of almost 2 billion years. We can say with conviction that it fully deserves its place in the top of the 7 natural wonders of the world. But if you want to stand out from the crowds of visitors who arrive here, hurry up to the north rim of the canyon, seen by only 10% of the annual number of curious people, or spend a night in the pool shelter. Only 1% of visitors do. And in order to feel that no one else is like you, how about renting a boat and taking it gently downhill, on the waters of the Grand Canyon? It's your word that after you float down to Colorado and dine in the light of the Milky Way, you'll find that you're capable of a sleep sweeter than a chocolate-dipped waffle. For a trip of 3, 6 or even 7 days, show up at Western River Expedition, and prepare for an experience you'll brag about for years to come. Coral Reef, Indonesia. The Raja Ampat Islands are estimated to have the highest level of marine life diversity from the planet. And who are we to argue with that when we know that we find here 600 species of coral and 1,200 varieties of fish? Isolated and almost untouched by the sinful hand of man, Raja Ampat is, without gratuitous exaggeration, a paradise for those who love diving. North American Prairie, Montana, USA. In the 16th century, the Great North American Prairies, spanning no fewer than 10 states, were home to somewhere between 30 and 60 million bison. By 1,800, of this huge population, less than 100 remained. Strange, however, the 1800s also saw the first attempts to conserve these living creatures. The national parks, probably the greatest idea ever to be born on American soil, appeared as a lifeline and saved the poor bison from total extinction. Fortunately, today their number has reached almost 500,000, and the National Bison Range Refuge in Montana had and still has great merit in saving this species. From Missoula, the park is more than accessible and awaits the traveler's eyes to bathe in the magnificent scenery, either from the car or on foot, although the park itself probably prefers the foot. Here you have every chance to come face to face with the aforementioned animal of intimidating size, yet so close to disappearing from the face of the earth completely. Madagascar. Madagascar is the 4th largest island, and due to the fact that it is not exactly in the middle of the fair, but rather isolated from the rest of the world, it means that many endemic species make their living there. Gorgeous beaches, jaw-dropping national parks that make the lower ones slide slightly down in surprise, baobabs in weird shapes and lots of jungle. Oh, and of course lemurs. Species, as much leaf as grass, from those with ringtails to the Indri species, that communicates like a cry. The island may not be exactly the place you can reach with your eyes closed, but it is definitely worth all the efforts. For a textbook introduction to this island the size of France, show up at the Baobab and Singi Explorer Tour Desk, and request an 8-day tour. Tell them you're interested in a G Adventures. Guys will understand what you are talking about. Madagascar is the 4th largest island, and due to the fact that it is not exactly in the middle of the fair, but rather isolated from the rest of the world, it means that many endemic species make their living there. Gorgeous beaches, jaw-dropping national parks that make the lower ones slide slightly down in surprise, baobabs in weird shapes and lots of jungle. Oh, and of course lemurs. Species, as much leaf as grass, from those with ringtails to the Indri species, that communicates like a cry. The island may not be exactly the place you can reach with your eyes closed, but it is definitely worth all the efforts. For a textbook introduction to this island the size of France, show up at the Baobab and Singi Explorer Tour Desk, and request an 8-day tour. Tell them you're interested in a G Adventures. Guys will understand what you are talking about. Jodhpur, India, also known as the Blue City due to the piles of houses, painted in various shades of azure. Those who know Jodhpur know a thing or two about its temples, palaces, spices and history, and impossible not to have impressed them at least a little. And if there's one thing the city is known for, it's its furry cohabitant population of hundreds of grey langurs, properly fed, and constantly watching the two-legged inhabitants of the city. The langur monkeys feel at home here. To visitors, the image may seem a little strange, but as soon as they learn that they are worshipped as a symbol of the monkey deity, Hanuman, the whole story seems to start to make sense. Just go with the flow and don't ask silly questions. Antarctica. One of the, probably most, brave trips on the BBC list is a visit to silent Antarctica. But no matter how much effort, of all kinds, it requires, the 4 days spent on this silent sea are well worth it. There are some incredibly different and unspoiled places, and whether or not a humpback whale, an elephant seal or a chinstrap penguin crosses your path, what will be reflected in your eyes will surely be the ice. Tons and tons of endless ice. From divinely white snowy mountains, to undulating tunnels that carve their way through the solidity of icebergs, you'll see every shade of blue ever created on Earth. If you are lucky, you can witness the colossal ice falls, with such a spectacle spread before your eyes. Don't be surprised that you find yourself philosophizing that life is nothing but birth, love and death, that the rest are just fireworks turning into dust and so on. You can get to Antarctica from several destinations, but whichever you choose, make sure the operator is a member of the IATO, International Association of Antarctica Tour Operators, because only they organize tours with strict rules regarding safety and environmental responsibility.
Alexandru, thanks for viewing. If you liked the video, don't forget